The 7 Challenger astronauts did not die in the explosion. It turns out they were not on board the shuttle. And no, these photos are not AI-generated age progressions. These are real people. Anyone can look them up on Google. While it is true that everyone has a doppelganger, having a doppelganger with the same name is incredibly rare. So rare, in fact, that the handful of cases known to exist have made national news. You're probably wondering, if they are alive, then what is the reason for the deception? I'll answer that question in a moment, but first, let's take a look at the evidence. 3 of the 5 Challenger astronauts, Richard Scobie, Judy Resnick, and Michael J. Smith. All 3 of them were found to be alive, still using their original names. Is it possible that these 3 astronauts could have living doppelgangers with the same names? Not likely, and here's why. Although Michael J. Smith is a common name, the names of the other 2 astronauts, Richard Scobie and Judy Resnick, are exceptionally uncommon. For example, there are only 6 women currently living in the US named Judy or Judith Resnick. And there are only 16 men currently living in the US under any variation of the name Richard Scobie. What are the chances that all 3 of these astronauts would have living doppelgangers with the same names? The other 2 astronauts, Ronald McNair and Ellison Onizuka, both were found to have living twin brothers named Carl McNair and Claude Onizuka. However, no birth records could be found for either one of them. Some have speculated that Krista McAuliffe is now a Syracuse law professor named Sharon McAuliffe, and although they do look similar in appearance, their facial features do not match up. So as of now, the whereabouts of Krista McAuliffe and Gregory Jarvis remain officially unknown. An investigator tracked down and confronted Professor Judith Resnick.
Hey, Judy? Judy. How you doing? I'm from the press. I just had a quick question, if you don't mind.
What press? I'm
from a radio station in San Bernardino. I know there's a conspiracy about the space shuttle. No, I want to be polite. Friendly, just a question. So there's a lot of rumors about you being on that space shuttle. Obviously, if you want to comment, we would really appreciate it.
Professor Michael J. Smith was also tracked down and confronted.
Hey there. Hey, sorry to bother you. I was pulling out and I saw you. I just came by to... Are you Michael Smith?
Yeah.
Professor at university?
Retired.
Retired?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just stopped by because there's this room. Are you aware of that? There's a rumor on the internet.
It's not me.
That people are saying.
Yeah, it's not me, obviously. I mean, anybody that looks at my background, looks where I was born, it's not me. I mean, it's interesting that the Michael J. Smith that was the astronaut looks something like me when we were younger, but really not if you really look at facial recognition.
You never been a pilot, never been in the military?
Nothing like that.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I don't respond to the emails I get. I get probably an email, maybe 2 a month.
Really?
And I got one guy that's been really hounding me, and I turned it over to the FBI.
Really?
I mean, it's bullshit.
Okay.
Another crazy theory.
Okay.
But that's, not me. I'm glad I wasn't him, but he's quite a guy.
Yeah.
But if you look at my career, you look at my CV that's online, all the stuff I've published, all that I've done, it's not even close to what that guy was.
Okay. Yeah, you just sure look alike. It's the same name.
I know the facial thing, but that's what we looked like, 40 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
The investigator who confronted Professor Michael J. Smith disappeared from social media shortly after uploading that video 3 years ago. He has not been heard from since.
For a very long arm, which is as long as the cargo bay, it's 50 feet long.
A long history, you can see along with the other amazing, the list of what is often invoked.
I'm hoping that
I'll
Holly had from the 41D mission specialist.
Stewart ad in 1960. I just want to fast forward together, and they draft these standard minimum.
According to PolitiFact, in 1985, Professor Resnick was writing papers for law review journals, while the astronaut Resnick was on a space flight. And there is documentation showing law journals written by Professor Judy Resnick in 1982. Let's search the archive publications for the name Judith Resnick. The results show nothing prior to 1986. Next, we'll try searching for Professor Judith Resnick. And as you can see, no published results prior to 1987. Now we'll try Resnick, Yale Law. And again, the earliest result is 1987. Why didn't the crew board the shuttle? And the answer is complicated. The 1986 mission was the Challenger shuttle's 25th launch. Challenger was built in 1979 and was designed to be a test vehicle for the space program. It was not intended for long-term use, and plans to build the final vessel were repeatedly pushed back due to budget cuts, causing NASA much frustration. At the time, NASA held the lead position in the ongoing competition between countries to be the forefront in space exploration. The continuous denial of funding was perceived by NASA to be an ominous sign. They knew they had to do something, possibly out of fear of becoming obsolete, as public interest in NASA was steadily waning. So they came up with a plan that would garner enough sympathy from the public to get the funding that they needed without any loss of life. I don't believe that the 7 crew members were aware of NASA's plan until the day before launch. They were told that they would not be boarding the shuttle. It seems more plausible that the crew were unwittingly forced to comply with a cover-up, rather than doing so by choice. NASA assured that their families would be protected, and of course rewarded with a hefty financial compensation. After some minor cosmetic alterations to their appearances, the FBI's Witness Protection Program was able to create trails of phony credentials to secure them prominent careers. Why wouldn't they change their names? And how could they live out their lives undetected? For 6 of the crew members, this was easy to do because they were not household names. As I stated before, public interest in the space program was very low. I was alive back then, and the only one I knew of was teacher Krista McAuliffe. I had no idea who the other astronauts were. There was no internet back then, so the flow and reach of information was severely limited. For Krista McAuliffe, on the other hand, this transition would have been a lot more difficult because she was the only one who held celebrity status. She would have had no other choice but to go into permanent lay-low hiding, which carries the risk of depression and paranoia. As highlighted in the National Geographic documentary, after the explosion, NASA was awarded billions of dollars in new funding, which resurrected the space program as was intended, and public interest in NASA subsequently skyrocketed.
After 2 decades of budget cuts and a loss of public interest, the shuttle has never made good on its promise to provide a routine bus service to space. The 25th shuttle launch will be far more than just another trip into orbit. It's designed to resurrect the entire program.
And like Krista said, you know, Mom, she said that shuttle, they can shut that down the very last second if anything's wrong.
In the months following the disaster, Morton Thiokol paid the astronauts' families around $4.6 million, but were awarded a $1.8 billion contract to develop a new range of rocket boosters.
If someone offered you $4.6 million to pretend that your loved one was deceased, even though they would still discreetly be a part of your life, would you do it? Of course you would. NASA achieved their selfish goal with callous disregard for the trauma they inflicted upon an entire generation of the nation's children. It is my firm belief that NASA's intentions were not nefarious per se, but rather indifferent to that effect. It is unreasonable to expect NASA or the crew members to admit culpability in such an elaborate deception, because can you imagine the backlash? Now you understand the importance of keeping this truth buried forever, and why the layers of lies are vehemently defended and perpetually instilled into the public's perception.